to Retail Chats. My name is Nolu Tando, but you can call me Nolu. Here we talk about our experiences. Sometimes we go out to see, feel, and touch. At this point, we are focusing on experiences. This is a three-part series where I share my journey about the last 2 years I spent working for a brand called a stationery brand in South Africa called CNA. And so this is the final part where I will be discussing our CCMA journey, UIF, and SARS. I suggest you have created a playlist. It's under Retail Chats. You will see it's my retail, the last days of it. It's called the last days of CNA, part 1 and part 2. So this will be part 3. So you can go back there and be up to date. So this is part 3, as I said. This is a point where I realized that nothing else is gonna come after I got my pay slip and I got the amount that I got. Also after numerous emails that I sent trying to get clarity. So the next step now, because this was October, well, end of October already, and we were a month away, entering festive season, and needed to at least be okay financially. So I did what I could do on my side. Started consulting with my bank and wherever I had savings, just to see how far it would carry me. And I did that, gave notices where I could. During the waiting period, my sister and my nephews also helped out. During this whole situation, we had mentioned that the next possibility, if these people are not responding to us, the next plan would be to go to the CCMA. What we did sometime in November. Now this is me and my colleague and the other one that worked in Cavendish, the other lady that worked in Cavendish, because she's close by where she stayed, so she used that UIF office. But us, this side, we met and used the one that was close to us. So we did that. We went to submit our documents. I will attach the communication that was frustrating, trying to get the correct documents with then the regional, not the regional, the head of ops that we were sort of, was our link to these people, these bosses. So, and I know for a fact that the previous group, the one that was retrenched in 2021, they also had challenges when it came to the UI-19 form for CNA operations. So at the end of October, I think it was the last day of the month, they sent our UI-19 forms and salaries, structure for the UIF, or for the UIF office to follow in a way, and a letter of service, and a letter confirming that we're indeed retrenched, so to submit. So right then when they sent that, first thing that I queried, because according to their UI-19 form, the Everland UI-19 form, I'd only worked for them from April 2022 until October 22. That is barely, that's not even a year. That's not even close to what we actually knew that we worked for. Because remember, the voting, if we don't consider the voting, which was the 30th of November 2021, then at least the December, the time that these guys started communicating with us officially via emails, via credit, which was in December. But the I-19 form only showed from April to. So as I was querying that, he said, no, that's correct. with Everland, that's not an error. But then with that UI 19 form, I actually don't know what was happening there. Spelling mistakes. So it was also that back and forth with, can you fix this? Can you fix this? This is wrong. This is wrong. But in terms of the service period, eventually, this guy came in and he said, "Oh no, that is the correct service period. There is nothing wrong with that. 6 months, basically." And it didn't make sense, but anyway, because also what didn't make sense more is that you are telling us that we only worked for 6 months. Now, only on the documents, none of this was discussed except for the time that they were trying with the BRPs, that were trying, they were not coming clear and explaining that the transaction or the sale of business came with exclusions, and these were the exclusions, so that people could make their decision properly. They were trying to blindside us or to strong arm us into signing a document that was eventually a document that would eventually make us forfeit our years of service and leave and everything. That was right, instead of them coming to us straight and be honest and say, look, we're buying the business, but we're not taking this, and that was agreed with your previous bosses or whoever the case is. We didn't know that, and now that was the first time that we saw that letter. And when they pushed and we were saying, plus answer the questions that we have, they didn't get back to us. And then now we get to the documents, and our documents only show 6 months. The funny part is that with all of that, they're contradicting themselves. They're contradicting themselves in terms of they're saying that we only work for them for 6 months. So surely, because when we came from EdCon and CNA operations took over, our pay slip changed. The structure of the pay slip itself changed a bit from what how EdCon was structuring our pay slip. Fine. As we understood that it was a 197 transfer, the benefit salary, everything else did not change. Years of service did not change. It's still reflected on the pay slip. Excuse me, it's still reflected on the payslip as it was. The only thing, the logo and the way they did the payslip was completely different to how EdCon used to do it. But now, from CNA operations to Everland Group, on the payslip, absolutely nothing changed. Even the date of service did not change. Yet on my UI 19, you are telling me that I only have 6 months or five and a half, April to October of months of service. My pay slip still shows I started in 2016. My pay slip shows that I started 2016. So what is it that you forgot to do? What kind of admin do you do? Like, what kind of admin do you do? Because even, I don't know, even when you complete or the back end documentation that you send to the Labor Department, how does that work if my payslip shows? Because also that would mean then that if I had to apply for anything, financial commitment, and I produced my payslip as it showed that I've been working for so long, if the financial or whatever that I'm applying would have required me to have worked for a certain period of time. So then that would have been a fraudulent activity then. If you now, on my last day of working, you are telling me then that I only worked for you for 6 months. However, my payslip shows that I've started working there for the brand in 2016. So if you had no intentions, it would have been clear even on the 189 letter, and you shouldn't have structured that letter like that, because it didn't apply to you then. If that was the case, it didn't apply to you. to the company, it didn't apply to us at all, because your letter should have structured in a way where you quote the relevant law and say, as per the department, the South African law or whatever suggests that for retrenchments, a week service or whatever, you quote that, and then you refer to our situation and said, as you know, employee so, unfortunately, the above doesn't apply to you because, and you list those things. So you led us on. I would not structure a 189 letter and put terms that don't apply to, they're not relevant to the current situation. Or why would you do that? If it came with exclusions, surely that was your opportunity to say also, we cannot afford medical aid, we cannot afford to contribute towards medical aid. That moves. We cannot afford to contribute towards provident fund, or that amount, or whatever the case is, and you remove that. We cannot afford to contribute towards the funeral covers and the funeral benefits that people have. You remove that as well. Why was this exclusion, this financial exclusion, only for severance pay and our leave days? Because that was your opportunity to look at the overall financial muscle of the business and tell and say those are the things that you were not willing to take on, because that was a financial burden as well. Those were financial burdens as well. Today, that is all financial stress that the company was dealing with. You could have structured and included, and you didn't include that. The next move or the next step was to go to the UIF office. As I mentioned, that we had spoken about it previously. UIF, and to meet up at the UIF on the same day, so that also we wanted to go on the same day, so that we see if maybe whatever error one person or whatever challenge one person experienced, if it was a common problem, or that we were all, the three of us were all missing at that time. All of us, basically, we were all missing the UR 19 form for 2020 up until Evelyn took over from CNA operations. And during this time, there was never any communication from the BRPs after they had handed over the business to CNA Everland. They have never communicated with us as to how to get the UI 19 form for CNA operations. No communication ever came from them regarding that. We submitted our file, our documents, and we were given sometime in December, just before I think the 15th December, to come back for feedback. We went for feedback, and our applications were not approved. They were pending, because obviously we were missing what? The UR19 form that we had been asking for. And immediately when we got home, I sent an email and requesting for this document. And I even mentioned that if it's a case, they even said that if it's a matter of it was liquidated, the CNA operations was liquidated or whatever, we just need to provide the proof of liquidation and the letter that will specify who were the liquidators. Send the email, got back, and the lady, because I sent it to our people and the BRPs as well, and the head of ops forwarded it to, no, the lady from BRPs forwarded it to our HR admin people, and it was silent. And then I followed up with, if there was ever a liquidation, that will be fine. And then the lady from the admin administrator of the BRPs responded that No, there was never a liquidation. It was business rescue plan adoption. That was the end of the conversation. And I said, but I'm looking for the UR19 form. No response. I don't know how many emails I sent, but then eventually, then I speak to the store manager of Cavendish to find out how did her application go. Did she get any feedback? Did that office accept the documents as they were, or what was the situation? And then she said no, she got her CNA operations UR19 form from the BRPs. She had to threaten them. She threatened them and then she got it. But now by the time I get this, obviously it's almost people are closing for holidays. This was now around the 17th 18th of December. So I come back to this lady and I say, hi, I believe that you are supposed to give us the UR19 forms. I've been asking for this. At no point did you indicate that you knew what I was talking about. What's going on? And then she responds, she's frustrated that she has a lot that she must deal with. I'll attach email, actually I'll attach a communication. I'm like, I don't understand, because that was my first question 2 weeks, 3 weeks back. Even the month of our retrenchment, I've been asking for this document so that by the time I go to the labor offices, I know that everything, I've got everything. What do you mean now that you are dealing with this, your inbox is flooded with these requests? So I must just fall back for something that I asked. I understand that the people that also are probably waiting, have been waiting forever, but I asked you, you didn't tell me that. If you had told me that, I wouldn't be asking you again. I was so frustrated with that lady, and she went on. She doesn't appreciate my tone or whatever. I'm like, you must be crazy that you're reducing this conversation to your feelings. Seriously. Anyway, and then after that she ignored me, and I guess they closed for holidays, and I didn't hear from them again. So now it's December, obviously. I remember I even went to LinkedIn and I posted about it on LinkedIn and I tagged them. But then after some time, I'm like, these people are not even active on LinkedIn. What is the point? Because I wanted it to get traction. It did, but it's pointless if the BRPs are not really on LinkedIn. So at some point I removed it. So at that time, while that was between the time we went to the labor department and when we were waiting for the December feedback, and while I decided, because we had a conversation regarding the CCMA offices, so then I went ahead as I was searching the process online, and I saw there was a link. I went to their site and I saw there was an option for an online application. Without knowing what I was doing, just captured the information, and that's how Nolutando and 3 others was born, because it ended up being Nolutando and 3 others. Within minutes, got the case number, and then I think 2 hours later, a case manager from the CCMA called to confirm, and I'm like, yes, that's the situation, and I explained what's going on. And also on, like, I didn't attach anything because I wasn't sure how to attach, and she's like, no, don't worry, what's gonna happen now, they will notify the employer. Did I put the correct information there for the employer? I'm like, yes. Says no, maybe the following day they'll contact the employer, and then we'll take it from there for the pre-ab and all of that. Like, okay, awesome, that is done. And at that time, I think immediately another email after the conversation, on the telephone conversation, another email came with the notification and the date of the actual date of the first pre-arbitration, or the first date, which was sometime in December at 12 p.m. or 2 p.m. And after being ignored when I was asking other questions relating to exactly what took us to ended up leading us to go to CCMA, suddenly somebody remembers my name. Somebody suddenly knows my number, and which one came first? I can't remember which came first. The WhatsApp conversation. It's okay if they do it online. Shortly after that, I was removed from the group. Didn't have access to the group, and that was it. And I blocked him because he removed me from the group, which means you don't want me. I don't know what influence did you think that I was gonna have over the group or anything like that, because already the day I left, I didn't even participate or be active on that group, but it was there because I knew that there maybe whatever announcement that they're gonna make, or if they can't get to the emails that we're sending, maybe eventually they'll consolidate the information and then respond on WhatsApp. I don't know, but I was there. There was no reason for me. Like, obviously that group was also as busy as it was. It wasn't as bad as the one that I left because I didn't want anything to do with. So I was removed from the group, and so we waited for the December period. And in terms of the UIF, now we're going back in Jan. There's nothing can be done. It's December. It's festive season, and obviously the BRPs were closed already. Came I waited, and then I figured, I kept on calling their offices, the BRPs. They were not picking up, so I figured they were still on holiday until the 10th of Jan 2023. I sent an email. I'm going to send this email to your boss, and let's see if it's them that are telling you to ignore or not to do your job. So I did. I sent an email. I wasn't asking. I was basically telling them what I was going to do. And I attached the entire email thread of when it started and how I got to the point that I was at. And I sent the email. I'm telling you guys, within 5 minutes, when I checked my inbox and I asked the other two ladies to check their inbox, our UI-19 forms were in our inboxes, just like that. And if you look, when I looked at the dates, those things were stamped and signed by one of the bosses in December already. That one just didn't prioritize us. Because even AdCon, guys, even though they closed in 2020, there was an email that was active, I think up until mid-2022, where people could email and ask for their UI-19 forms. You're telling me that these people couldn't even think of that? Create an email where you would have whatever, just do it. Today, just do it. And anyway, so we got our UI-19. We rushed back to the Labor Department, submitted that. I'm not even going to dwell on the issues that thing to do with CNA. It was the Labor Department, the UIF office. After that, I think in terms of the UI-19 form, after we got that, submitted our stuff. Eventually, I think we started earning in Feb. It was approved. Whatever challenges that we dealt with in that place, It's just another story. But I think I actually did a little bit, but I didn't dwell on much. That's a government issue. That's a South African government issue. That's a public service issue. There's nothing to do with them, with any of these people. While we were earning, and at some point I thought, I didn't file the previous year. Let me get my tax things on. I managed to file for the previous year, and then there was an email that was sent by the BRPs at some point where they were talking about duplicated IRP5s. And so when I filed, I discovered that I owed SARS money for the first time ever. I owed SARS money, and it has nothing to do with my previous filings. And I linked it back to, because again, there was a noise from the 2021 group. People were owing SARS a lot of money. It turned out that it was the duplicated IRP5s that BRPs had sent us an email. They sent 2 emails about the issue, and then they sent it again that they were struggling, something about a back-end issue, but they are dealing with it with HR. After that, we've never had anything, any update. Turns out that there was a letter that they issued, but this is not a generic letter. They would have to personalize it because it was going to SARS, where you were to produce, and so I guess SARS to see where the issue came from, and they would then help or file accordingly. But by the time I did mine, owed SARS about 2.8 or something, and which was, I mean, crazy, because I don't have 2.8 to give away for free now, to just give it to SARS. And I went to SARS because obviously every month it was incurring interest. So I went to SARS and I asked them. So the lady said, look, she can't stop it at that point. She would have to apply, request. I submitted everything, and then what she requested for is that they stop the interest for up until the investigation happens. And then I think 6 months later, I got a notification that my appeal was declined. I guess it was out of the time period or whatever the case is. So I was liable for the money. I had to pay the money for a document that could have been given to us on time, and it just was not given to us on time, because when I found out about the situation and I asked about the document was readily available. Why it was never given to us, I have no idea. On time, to avoid paying for things that we had nothing to do with it. So back to the CCMA office. So the day got closer as we prepare. Like I said, we literally had no idea what to expect or how things went. We've never been at the CCMA. We didn't have a representative. We were just there with our evidence. Luckily, closer to the last week while we were serving notice, I forwarded, and some of the ladies forwarded most of the documents that we thought we would need, or information that we thought we would need. And it also, that helped greatly, because when we then started compiling our evidence, it was easy to just print and not ask people to forward us information. So we did that. When I spoke to the 2 ladies that were remaining, because the case came as Noluthando and 3 others, my former bosses assumed that the 3 others, obviously they knew that the second person would be my admin manager, but they didn't know who the 2. So they assumed that the 2 other people would be the ladies that left behind, that didn't, that accepted whatever offer they gave. So somehow in their minds, they thought that I was crazy enough to influence people that were still working for the company and risk their jobs and risk their salaries and influence them to go with me, to go help me fight a battle that they were not facing, because that is what came down to. They were still employed. So in their mind, they thought that I somehow got to those ladies and convinced them to be the fourth members. It never crossed their minds that beyond, like I said before, that it was more than just working for us. It was relationships that we formed. So beyond what was happening in the store, we still had relationships with people that worked outside the store. I don't know how it didn't click to them. So what they did, they immediately printed a document, gave those ladies it's not an NDA, but a form that clearly would also affect them in future, where they said, gave them a pre-typed form where it said they're pulling out of the case. As much as those women repeatedly told them, we don't know what you're talking about. We are not with her. We didn't take you guys to the CCMA. They still made them sign the document. We're pulling out of the case, it said, and we have no financial claims against the company. And something else, I'll see if I can also find that document. So those ladies signed, and I was furious because especially the line that said, we have no financial claim against the company. Because then with them, and I said to them, you shouldn't have signed that. Your word should have been fine, enough. You didn't have to sign any document because you knew that you were not part of the case. And the fact that you guys signed, especially a line that says you have no financial claim against the company, those guys are protecting themselves for future. Tomorrow they fire you, they will produce that. For any other reason, they will produce that document. So anyway, they sign, and then in their mind, they thought that they've killed half of the team, because now it's just me and my admin manager. And then they apply, and they are online, the teams meeting, the teams, instead of physically attending, was approved, the online application. Comes the day before, they're busy sending, they're busy doing all these affidavits, everything that I've never seen. Like, I mean, I've never been to the CCMA, none of us have ever been. And these guys, at first it was intimidating, because it's like, affidavits, this and this, and this is all sent just close to 4:30, before they close off business. It's sent, and I'm sitting and I'm reading this, and I'm asking the other ladies, I'm forwarding it to the other ladies, like, guys, see this is what they sent, and we're going through this. And I'm like, you know what? And this, because we had not prepared. We have our evidence, but we have not structured it in a way that, in a case file. It was not in a case file. It was just, here's my payslip, here's this email, here's that. And so I think, I'm like, okay, should we then draft something? So drafted a 2-page thing stating exactly what is it that we're claiming. Did not number any supporting documents, nothing. Didn't send anything to them either. we got to the CCMA office. We meet the commissioner, and we were waiting because they had sent a Zoom or Teams link. We were dialing in there. Nothing happened. There was no connection. We were there until 2, I think. The store manager of Cavendish still brought her laptop, so she was dialing there, and I was also trying to connect on my phone. None of those picked up. None of those. There was nothing. There was no one waiting for us. And the commissioner left and went to the reception or to the other case manager just to find out what's going on. And then he came back with an email, documents. These guys now, while we're waiting there for them, 12 o'clock, they applied for a joinder. Now they're saying they should not only be the respondents, there should be another respondent, which is CNA operations or the BRPs. So we should be claiming, in essence, they're saying if we have any claims, it's them and CNA operations that should answer for this. So then the commissioner says, okay, he lets us go, and then eventually he updates the case with that information, a joinder. So what was going to happen now? So we gave them the BRP's contact information, email, and all of that, so that for them to be alerted that they are now implicated in this case. They never responded, ever. From day one, never responded. We got another date as it all go on. I'm telling you, this is a case that started in 2023. It was only finalized in April 2024. The BRPs never bothered. And they got the emails. At first, there were email addresses that were mixed up. Also, the CCMA admin people. And the fact that every time you go there, you deal with different commissioners. That's another, that was the part that was frustrating. We dealt with 3 commissioners. And then finally the third one said, no, I can see that you guys have been in and out of this place and there's nothing. Almost a year later, there is absolutely no concrete, there's no structure to this case. I'm going to request, we didn't know that they could request that they are the only commissioner to deal with the case. So he requested, God bless his heart, he requested that he will, deal with our case from up until the end. The second commissioner, the first, we saw him twice. The second one, oh, what an arrogant man. What a dismissive man. I don't even want to mention the other terms, but I am telling you, when we left that Mr. B, Commissioner B's, that conference room, the ladies looked at me and they said, how did you manage to keep your head, to sit there and speak to someone that wouldn't even look, that man wouldn't even look at me. Every time I speak, and he was like, when I open my mouth, he's like, you're that man. And yes, every time I opened he's until, so he wouldn't look at me, he wouldn't speak to me, he would look at the lady from Cavendish, the store manager, and he would try and speak to her, but with me it's like, I don't know if it were, but here's the thing, by the time we left that boardroom, he had no way but to look at me in the eye. Then he's like, and I looked at him. So while he's doing this, and I'm like, okay, luckily the store manager of Cavendish jumped in, and she's also like, she's annoyed. It's like, how like, you can hear that, because she's a soft-spoken person, so, but you could hear in her voice that, like, she's shocked, like, is this happening? Is this man doing this? And so when she was done, he noticed that I was looking at him like this the whole time. And I think, and there was no reaction. I was just looking at him like this the whole time. And at some point, because it was also, I think it was also we were supposed to dial in or something. And I had my phone. I don't know if he thought I was recording him. Then he immediately, like sort of snapped back a bit, and then he made eye contact, because I was like, just like looking at him like this the whole time. And then I stated what I stated.
I don't know. I won't lie. The hand gesture and the dismissive behavior shocked me, but there was no time for me to dwell on that. The important thing was that he, unfortunately, was bound by what his job to tell us exactly what we needed to do. That's why we were there. And the fact that we were on the second commissioner and our case wasn't progressing, that was our important thing. We're not there for his hand gestures. And so eventually he pulled himself towards himself, because at the end of the day, he had to do it, and he knew that we were going to report him. In fact, we did at the reception, we asked for his name, and the guy in front was shocked as to why. We said, no, that man was rude to us. That's why we're asking for his name. And then anyway, eventually on the report, the name was there as well. But yeah, that's what he did, and then he eventually then
So
detailed
what he
exactly
can do,
what we needed to do.
what he can suggest, that we arrange a pre-ab with the first respondent and the second respondent, and then try and resolve this amongst us, and then once after that, then we can send minutes of the meeting, and then the CCMA will take it from there. Fine, we go back, we set all that up, we do the invitation, set up a Zoom meeting well in advance, give them, these people, enough time to do that. We go to the store, because obviously we're not going to use our resources now. We go to the store, we set up, we waited. They never dialed in. Got back, sent minutes, copied everyone to say this, like exactly what happened. Nothing. And then obviously that's where we met the third commissioner. And the third commissioner tried with the Zoom. And that's when we eventually, with the third commissioner, after I sent the minutes and meetings, because at some point I think they were trying to make us give up. And so the first meeting, here's the thing. The first meeting, 3 things happened. They applied for an online consultation, which was approved, and they didn't show up. And then when we got back home, they tried to make as if we didn't show up. They sent an email saying they wait, so-and-so, their representative was on the line for so long and we did not show up. And I said, if he dialed in with the link that you provided us, there must have been something wrong with the link. And second of all, maybe he didn't want to speak to us, because all of you guys have our numbers. We were there. And thirdly, you know very well that 12 o'clock you sent a request for a joiner. So what is it that you wanted us to do? Eventually, with the third commissioner, they dialed in. And I'm not even going to bother now giving dates, because the CCMA does not deal with one case manager. So my emails are all over with all these this communication. But I remember that they dialed in and we were there, and the shock of their life when they actually found out that it was the 4 former managers. And so their representative's claim was that no, yes, it was a 189 letter transfer, but it had exclusions. And so the commissioner says, yeah, we saw the letter that you attached, but it's not complete. So
he said, send us exactly that document. We want to see the exclusions that you're referring to, because what they had attached was a 14-page document out of 69
after
pages.
all the back and forth of going to the CCMA, a meeting before the one they pitched for was supposed to happen, and then all of a sudden their representative was sick, so they sent an affidavit again and a sick note. And so our case kept on moving, like being moved further and further. So now this is around April 2023, and they finally show up for a case that was initiated in November 2022. Suddenly you also draw the joinder request, but now provide us the document. Let us see what you speak of, you know? And I'm assuming that even though they were not talking to us, the BRPs and the whole crew wasn't speaking to us, I think when they went through the documents, they actually discovered that us four were actually the part of the people that never signed any document that was giving away our service. So that's why maybe the BRPs didn't show up, or the BRPs just didn't give a damn. We don't know. We can only assume. We are given a date for sometime end of April or something, and their representative is looking at his calendar, is like, wants to confirm the date. And I said, wait, Commissioner, I just need to ask something. This guy, he knows very well that his client
is wrapping up for closure, month end in April. So how is it that he wants us to show up to meet again after the fact?
Shock on that man's face. Their representative is like, what? Excuse me, what? I'm like, I am asking, why are you accepting a date that is end of April or May, or early May, where you know that your client is currently trying to close stores, is wrapping up for month end? That was the end of the meeting, and we never heard from their representative ever again. So the next step, because we knew now that we had to our case, what is required from the case is that document.
So as much as we were waiting for this document, we didn't hear from the company or their representative. It went quiet. However, we also discovered that they decided to give the staff month-to-month contracts, so they were still trading. We were happy with this information because it helped us to take it to the next step, which was to subpoena the company and both respondents to try and get this document. Did CCMA process the subpoena? Nope. We found out at a later stage that it was never sent to the relevant people, even though we had sent the copies. And this we find out by getting an email from the CCMA saying that our case has been partially closed. It's in Limine. I hope I'm saying that right. So because some of the reasons they gave were that we failed to provide correct contact details for our former employer, and there were 2 or 3 reasons there. And so jumped on an email draft and sent back and said, no, here's the information, here's proof that we supplied and updated information. Even with that one that was giving me his hand, on there's proof that the CCMA had typed incorrect email address. It wasn't our fault. It was actually you guys. It wasn't us. So combined all that information and attached it and sent it off for them to reopen the case, because if it was going to be shelved and be partially closed, it was delaying us, because we literally had a short period of time to get these guys to respond, or at least to try and provide us this information or this document that we required from them. At this point, we had gathered all our evidence, and the store manager of Cavendish was busy with the draft, and it was as big as it can be. We submitted that and sent that all together so that we could get things going. But once they received the information, it didn't take long for them to reopen, actually, because they continued to ignore us and the CCMA and everyone involved. The commissioner used his discretion to go ahead and continue the hearing in their absence, which we
Commissioner
did.
Eventually made his decision and granted us an award. But now an award means nothing to us if it's not going to translate to anything that gets to our bank, right? We tried to get through to those people, sent the award via email, sent the award to the BRPs and directors of the final bosses of Evalent Group, and no response. Kept on checking on this on that website. The business was still registered, meaning then they didn't immediately go into liquidation or whatever the case is. But because again there was something happening between the directors, that because I was not part of the group anymore, a lot of information was being shared after the stores had closed. So there was a lot of information being exchanged there, to a point where there was a document that we know that Anglo Wealth was the funder, funding the whole CNA thing under Evalent Group. I sent the information, the award by MMS to these guys again, because it would have been, if they didn't open the link, they didn't open the link. But wherever they are fully aware of everything. They know what happened. I remember I sent it to the head of operations, and his response was, "Hi, Nolu, I no longer work for CNA." I'm like, oh. I sent it to everybody. Like, I was just annoying them at that point, knowing very well that there were more issues that they were dealing with. All I wanted to know, are they still using the same number? And the answer was yes, because my admin manager, for some reason, is still on that group. Those guys are still using the numbers that we also have, the same numbers that CCMA have. It's just that they told themselves that's just what they're gonna do. They're not gonna pay us, then they're sticking to their story. Whatever transpired in that group from the date of closure, and sometime maybe early last year, someone else would tell that story. It's even worse than what we experienced. But then again, we are all in the same boat, because at the end of the day, we worked and we were told something else and other things happened. And I know that at some point one person ended up buying one store with his family, and they were running that store, and they changed the name. I do not know if, as of today, the 5th of June, if that store is still operating. Then after that, after some time, after making sure that they got the arbitration award, the next step was to certify or enforce the award, which we did. We went, and that process took about 2 to 3 weeks. The lady there suggested that we go to the labor court for that. At some point, we went to the labor court sometime last year, towards the end of last year, just to find out. Unfortunately, when we got there, the lady that explained to us that we can't draft ourselves. Whatever they do there, they accept drafts from lawyers. So we can't draft it on our own and submit it on our own. It has to come from a lawyer. And that there are lawyers or attorneys that on Fridays there. It would be unfair to expect anyone to do anything for free. Guys, we left that job because we couldn't take a salary cut. It would be so unfair to expect a professional to work for free. They also have people to pay. So because of that, and we also looked at the time and it's like, you know what? Most of these appearances and whatever would require us to be there. We don't know how long that would take. Even if you get, like, for future employment, you can't keep on making excuses for not coming to work for things that you don't know when they're gonna be completed. So we got that information, and guess that was the end of our journey. And as much as it did not translate to money, I believe that even the commissioner hearing our case and looking at the evidence that we provided, then it proves that our claim was not, we're not being greedy, on the right track, and that's what matters. So yeah, that is the end of the last days of CNA. The last days of CNA, my point of view, and that was the CCMA. And so we are sitting with an award